My name is Heather Cornish. First name Heather, last name Cornish. Thank you for considering me as a candidate of the Master of Science program in Speech Pathology and for giving me this opportunity to share more about myself in terms of education. My ultimate goal is to work as a speech pathologist in the public schools, serving children and their families in a low-income, diverse population. The issues surrounding diversity are complex and sensitive, but the bright side of diversity is being able to share cultural traditions and celebrating all walks of life. For example, Thanksgiving dinner at my grandparents' includes a traditional turkey dinner, but we also have lumpia rolls made by my Filipina aunt and homemade sausages from my Italian uncle. On my father's side, my grandpa was raised on a farm in Indiana. My grandmother lived on a farm in Puerto Rico. Her family survived by fishing and growing fruits and vegetables. They taught me how to plant and grow food when I was little. It is easy to offend them by not accepting gifts of food, which symbolize sharing precious resources for survival. Cultural values often influence how people respond in a given situation. My Filipina aunt's role in her family was to care for her parents and do housework until she married my uncle. She was not allowed to move out into her own apartment until after the wedding. This was a new concept for my mother's family, who had raised 4 independent women. Fortunately, my family values culture and understands that this tradition reflects a cultural value of loyalty to family and protection of their daughter. Once you determine to be open-minded, diversity seems to enter all aspects of your life. Taking 2 sign language classes was a great experience for me. I had prior experience with my parents' housekeeper who was deaf. The classes helped me to have a deeper understanding of deaf culture. This woman helped me to understand what a revolution texting is for their community. She is able to easily communicate by phone with friends, family, and in business. Understanding deaf culture will allow me to be sensitive when exploring options for my future clients with hearing impairment. The most important thing I learned is to not assume what choices people will make regarding hearing aids or cochlear implants. There are many factors to consider besides whether it will improve hearing. The diversity in my community is reflected by many people from Mexico and different parts of Asia, most of whom are bilingual. The most amazing learners are always the children who seem to absorb language easily and aren't embarrassed to make mistakes. My friends from Korea always attended Saturday school, where they learned to read and write in Korean, as well as to sharpen their speaking skills. When I was little, I didn't really understand the value of this extra school time. Now that they are adults, I realize the benefit of this type of study. Being bilingual gives them the advantage of being able to travel and work in other countries. They can communicate with parents and grandparents at a deep level of understanding. Maintaining bilingualism is an important message to relay to parents when making decisions about their child's education. When I am working in public schools, I understand there are many issues involved in planning assessment and treatment of children from bilingual backgrounds. Each case must be carefully considered individually. Another important lesson I have learned is that cultural sensitivity cannot be acquired quickly. From my experiences, I understand that there can be subcultures with different values within a broader community of people. For example, prior to volunteering at our local LGBT Pride Festival, I attended a training meeting to learn about their mission and community message. The leaders of the group asked the volunteers to wear the Pride Festival t-shirts without alterations or cutting them. The leaders of the group asked the volunteers to wear their Pride Festival t-shirts without alterations or cutting them. It is very important for them to project a professional image to the press. This was very different than the typical portrayal of the LGBT community. At the festival, the leaders and volunteers generally followed this rule. However, there was definitely a subculture of those who wanted to dress provocatively. It made me more aware that we need to be both sensitive and observant when interacting with all types of people. While someone might identify with a general identity of a particular group, they are still individuals who determine their own values and create their own lifestyle according to those values. One of the most interesting areas of study for me is autism. I have many experiences with people with autism throughout my volunteer work. When I worked as an assistant for social skills classes at our therapeutic recreation department, I was able to work with both children and young adults with special needs. In the beginning, one little boy refused to come in the classroom. The teacher had the parent come in and sit down. The little boy ran in after her and hid under the table. The mother was very distressed and was trying to get him to come out. The instructor told her to just let him watch from under the table. After a while, he began peeking out farther and farther. Eventually, he saw some fun activity and joined the group. It was really sweet to see him learn how to engage with peers for the first time in his life. After the summer session was over, he had learned how to play board games and play together in a group on the playground. Socializing is such a pleasure for most of us. It can be so confusing and painful for people with autism. That is why I love working with them. I found that being calm and encouraging allows people with autism to try new things. They need things explained visually and feel better when they have a visual schedule. I learned to draw picture schedules for the little children and a written schedule for the older children and adults. One of my jobs when assisting this class was to help a child calm down if they became too hyper or too upset. By taking them into a separate room, they could get away from all the extra stimulation. I would offer a few options for them to calm down. If they needed a distraction, we could play a preferred learning game that was provided by the instructor. When working with young adults, I helped the instructor demonstrate skills through role play. It really helped them to see someone else demonstrate body language, conversation skills, and eye contact rules. Most of the clients were about the same age as me, so they were really happy to have a peer helping them with things like typical conversation topics and understanding how relationships work. For example, many had never used a cell phone before and needed to practice talking to peers on the phone and understand how to invite someone to hang out. Texting rules were new to them. If they had already been texting, some of them had run into troubles by texting someone too often. We were able to discuss these issues in a safe environment. I volunteered for this program for 3 summers in a row. I got to see their growth across time and got to know their families as well. I enjoyed it so much that last summer I met with some of these families and started a book club for young adults with special needs. We were able to meet every week during the summer at a local coffee shop to socialize, read, and discuss the book. I really enjoy working with both children and adults. When working with adults, such as the one described in the essay assignment, I feel that it is extremely important to develop a sense of rapport that includes proper respect for their age and stage of life. Their life experience and contributions they have made deserve acknowledgement. When treating someone for communication problems, you can never forget the whole person. In older adults, this becomes increasingly important. Quality of life is critical for them. They may face disease that will only get worse over time. Also, in the case of stroke or Parkinson's, they may be dealing with the loss of motor control, which affects their independence and sense of purpose. Family members are often under a lot of stress, both from emotions and physically caring for their loved one. For example, my grandmother ended up in the hospital after caring for my grandfather with Parkinson's by herself. She was not only exhausted, but she was under constant stress from his deteriorating ability to communicate coherently. The Parkinson's makes his vocal folds very weak, so his voice is soft. He also began to lose recognition of some people and would get very upset. These issues cannot be separated from communication therapy. His speech therapist helps him with exercises for his voice. She gives my grandmother and other caregivers advice on how to talk to him in a way that he can understand. For adults in later stages of life, I believe it is just as valuable to help the caregivers with communication as it is to help the client. Thank you for your valuable time and consideration for my application.